Alright, let's go over how to do the hand coloring. And remember, the first thing that we want to do is, after importing our images into Lightroom, is to make the image that we want to hand color into a black and white, just like we normally would. So I've got this image open here. I'm going to make it a black and white. I'll go down into my black and white sliders here to see if there's anything that I want to do in changing these black and white. And I think for what I have here, I think I'll probably leave it. Although as I'm saying that, there are a couple things I'm deciding to play around with a little bit just to see what they might do. Remember, sometimes you want to go back and forth between color and black and white just to see what the colors are that you have to work with. But in this image, most of the colors that I have to work with are in the red, orange area. So I think that'll do it. And then once you have it all set up, of course, as I'm looking at this, also I'm seeing my histogram is peaking up, peaking a little bit there in the whites. So I'm going to see what kind of detail I can get back if I pull that back down a little bit, and that's kind of nice. And I'm going to get the blacks into that corner there. So it looks a little bit nicer as a black and white. So then we want to open our image into Photoshop. And to do that from Lightroom, we right click or control click, go to Edit in, Adobe Photoshop CS6. And then once our image opens in Photoshop, then we're pretty much ready to start doing our hue saturation layers, which is how we do the hand coloring. And as an option, you can do your first hue saturation layer as just an overall toning of your image. And so once I've clicked on the hue saturation button, you can see that there's a new hue saturation layer in my layer palette, and the properties palette pops out for hue saturation, where I've got my hue slider, saturation, and lightness slider. And I'm going to click on colorize. And if you want to do an overall toning of your image, it's usually as a sepia tone, nice warm brown tone. But I'm kind of thinking that for this image, I might actually want to do it in the blue tones, make it more of what we would call a cyanotype. But I'm going to bring that saturation down and just kind of give it just a little bit of coolness. Okay, now that's fairly subtle, but you can see as I turn it on and off, you can see the difference. Now that I have that done, I'm going to do another hue saturation layer. Click on colorize, and this time I want a nice warm red. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to bring up my saturation. Okay, I've got the red that I want. Remember that each one of these hue saturation layers has a mask. It comes already with a mask. And what we want to do to begin with is we're going to hide the color that we just created. So we're going to fill this mask with black. And over on the other side, at the bottom of our tool palette, you can see the foreground and background colors. And right now my foreground color is black. And so to fill a selection or to fill a mask with the foreground color, it's Option Delete. So I did Option Delete. You can see that my mask is now full and the color has disappeared. So then I'm going to take my brush tool, which is right here, or you can hit B on the keyboard. So I hit B, I have my brush tool. Come up here to the options palette and select a nice round soft brush, depending on just how big of an area you want to brush. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. I'm using the bracket keys, so the opening bracket will make your brush smaller, and the closing bracket key will make your brush bigger. And we're going to want to paint white on the mask. So we actually have the mask selected, and so what we're doing is we're going to make white our foreground color, and you can use the X key on the keyboard to switch back and forth between your foreground and background colors. And so I'm painting white on the mask, and that's revealing that red color. And remember, anywhere that I want the red, I'm going to paint white. And if I overdo it somewhere, like I've gone off the edge here just a little bit, I hit the X key, which gives me black again, and I just paint black to clean that up. So I'm painting white back on the mask, and it just cleans that up for me. So that took care of that. Go back to white, a little bit of a smaller brush. Paint some red in there. And I may actually want a little bit more red showing in there, because I can see that there was some more ketchup kind of in there. And as far as some of these other little spots go, probably not going to want to do too much of those, because it's just going to get to be too much. There was some ketchup kind of up in here, so maybe I'll paint some of that. Not sure if I like that. I think I'm gonna get rid of that. Gonna leave that. Okay, so that's all I'm gonna paint there. If you want to do more colors, then just add more hue saturation layers. And for example, if I want to have a nice pink, maybe I'll come on this side and make it more magenta. I'm gonna come back over here. I like that better. Alright, and once again, I'm gonna fill that with black. Option delete. Use my paintbrush. Oops, gotta make sure I'm painting white. So it is true that there are some colors that we don't really have access to using hue saturation. There is another way to go about doing this if we want to. Rather than using the hue saturation layer, if we want to use a different color that maybe we don't have access to, I'm just going to bring this out because I'm going to lower the saturation of that color that I just did. If you come down here to this black and white little button here and hold the option key when we click on it, and then go to remember which one. Oops. I think I'm gonna just keep things simple and have you use the hue saturation layers rather than to, well, okay, I'll do this. If you hold Option while we click the new layer button, you'll get this that will come up, and we're gonna change the mode to overlay. Actually, sometimes soft light works as well, and I think I'm going to go to soft light, and I'm going to fill that with this soft light neutral color 50% gray. So I'm going to use this layer to dodge in some color, and so if I take this color and find a nice pink in here and say okay, then when I take my brush, it'll basically paint that color in. See how that's doing that? But the problem with using this layer to do a color is we don't quite have the control that we do with the hue saturation as far as having a mask and stuff. I can add a mask to this layer, that's no big deal, and then I can, that way if I overdo the colors a little bit and I want to take care of that, I can just go to the mask and kind of clean things up a little bit. Like that. So that is a way that you could get some other colors that are hard to get with the hue saturation layer. And we can use opacity to control the saturation of that color. So that actually works a little bit better for a pink. Alright, so that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do your hand coloring. Remember that once you're all finished, you want to save what you've done, and once that is finished saving, just hold on here while it's still working on saving it. So once that's finished saving and I go back to Lightroom, my image is here in Lightroom, and then I can export using my high res setting to print and export using my low res setting to put it up on my website. So there you go. That's all there is to it.